Welcome, everyone. We're back, and I'm delighted today to have Kevin Wasik join me. Kevin is the head of global business development at UPS Flight Forward. Kevin, welcome. Delighted you could do it today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for reaching out to UPS Flight Forward. Happy to be here.
So UPS has been a longstanding member of AUVSI, and you guys have really been providing a lot of leadership in the UAS world, in the logistics world generally for many years, and of course, very recently had some real milestones. You've delivered the first things under Part 135, as I understand it. You were the first to do that. And of course, you're a finalist this year for an Excellence Award, an AUVSI Excellence Award. So really excited to have you join us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you guys have been doing at UPS?
Sure, absolutely. So I've been with UPS for close to 15 years. My background is mainly suited in sales and marketing with some strong experience with some key e-commerce players. But most recently, I've had the opportunity to work with UPS Flight Forward. Since the inception of Flight Forward, we've been focused on the healthcare industry. So you had mentioned the first revenue-generating flight, and that was actually back in March of 2019 with Wake Med Hospital in Raleigh, North Carolina. And even today, we are transporting blood specimens from an outpatient clinic to the hospital's central lab. We see tremendous opportunity to really exercise the benefits of drone delivery, which is added speed and predictability. So we're just getting started, but so far so good.
You did some work, I think, earlier on overseas as well, if my memory serves, in Rwanda, I believe. Was that right?
Well, yes. Back in 2016, UPS made a strategic investment in Zipline. Zipline is the operator in Rwanda, which is today, it's the world's largest drone delivery service. But that was UPS's first foray into drone delivery. Since then, in 2017, we tested drone delivery from a package car in Lithia, Florida. That was really our first foray in drone operations. And then our big milestone was last year with Wake Forest. And by June, we had received our Part 135 UAS Air Carrier Certificate from the FAA, which was the first of its kind in the country. We're very proud of that achievement.
Now, the Part 135, we just got done this week delivering the FAA UAS Symposium. We've been partnering with the FAA over the last 4 years on that, and it's a great event. And you know, you hear the FAA say more and more, hey, we've stretched Part 107 as far as we can take it. Of course, we're all waiting for remote identification in order to be able to do these extended operations. But I think you guys, you know how to deliver things under Part 135. You've been doing those kinds of operations for a long time. Houston Mills, the UPS board member, AUVSI board member from UPS, Captain Houston Mills, he knows how to fly the heavy iron. But really, this is, I think of this as really as much about a last mile, at least for small UAS, kind of an approach than anything else. Is that the way you look at it as well?
Well, from 135 is raising the standard for drone operations. What it does is really hold our airline, our drone airline, to the highest standards of safety. So in order to service last mile, to operate within a suburban environment over people, meeting those 135 requirements and even exceeding them in some instances, we do think is fundamental to expanding drone service across the country.
And being the first to do that, what do you think you can tell the rest of the industry about that? Because obviously there's going to be I saw a statistic the other day. In fact, I cited a statistic that delivery is $100 billion business. And you know, if we can help with some of that, I mean, completely aside from the environmental implications of some of that, delivering things with, you know, electrification, which is part of very near to my heart. I spent 10 years of my career working on electrification of transportation without even thinking about, hey, we're going to make these things fly as well. But the economic impact of that could be quite significant, and yet we have to get to regulation rather than being able to do these things under waivers or exemptions. So what can you tell people in the rest of the industry that might want to be able to provide these services and don't have necessarily the kind of vast experience that your company has with 135?
Well, we hope it's our vast experience in the airline industry that sets us apart and gives us a first mover advantage. But for those pursuing 135, you know, we see it as fundamental. In order to operate more complex operations, you mentioned regulations, right? We believe that 135 will be the backbone, will be the requirement to operate beyond visual line of sight. So in order to execute more complex operations, you know, pursuing 135, abiding by the rules and regulations of 135, which is a step up from 107, is important. It's not just important for UPS, it's important for the industry. So to your question, you know, I do think it's important that others in the industry pursue 135, and collectively we operate under those higher degrees of safety.
Mm. So we're in a very, very interesting time. I'm choosing my neutral words carefully here, and you cited the background that you've had specifically with healthcare. But I think you know, one of the reasons why we're reaching out to folks at this point in time is to highlight some of the ways that UAS and unmanned systems generally can be helpful in a pandemic-like environment. How do you see this as being a story that others can learn from, particularly adding value to social distancing and whatnot?
You know, this is really an unexpected opportunity. Unfortunate, but you know, since day one, UPS has been focused on the healthcare sector, leveraging drone technology to increase the speed of urgent medical deliveries. After the pandemic hit, we were already engaged with hospitals, hundreds of them across the country. And despite the demand on hospital systems due to the pandemic, they remain engaged on this drone project because they saw added value or benefits of the drone system. For example, some hospitals we are working with and planning to transport COVID-19 specimens. And the use case or the value behind the transport of a specimen is we're increasing the speed of transit, we're reducing the turnaround time within the lab environment, and ultimately providing an opportunity to diagnose these patients sooner. So there's the transport of the COVID-19 specimen itself, but better yet, at the villages in Florida, we're actually transporting prescriptions from a CVS pharmacy to a nearby retirement community. So you mentioned social distancing. This operation allows these seniors, this high risk demographic, to stay healthy at home. They don't have to go to the pharmacy to pick up their script. We are offering a rapid on-demand delivery of their urgent prescriptions. So that to me, again, is a unique opportunity of this pandemic, opportunities that did not exist prior to COVID.
What are you seeing? I mean, you mentioned the villages in Florida. How has that been accepted by folks that are in that area? That's one of the the things that we have to be thinking about constantly is public acceptance. Are arguably the number one barrier, if we don't do this right, is going to be public acceptance. If the public doesn't accept it, then it doesn't matter how good the technology is. How's it been accepted down there in your experience?
Yeah, that's a real concern. And community outreach is part of all of our programs. And some of that to start is communications, multi-channel, just informing the local area what's about to happen. But then really the reaction is unknown until we actually start operating. And lo and behold, we have a bit of a fan club down at the villages. We got up and running, and we had a number of seniors fascinated by the drone delivery operation. They wanted to see it take off. They wanted to see it land. We had a lot of ex-military pilots coming up and asking us questions. You know, there was a big word of mouth excitement among the community, and it was all positive. I'm sure there's going to be some detractors, but I got to be honest, at this point, we haven't really run into it, knock on wood. It's been warmly received by the public.
Oh, that's great to hear. I want to throw you, I promised you, center cut fastballs here, but I'm going to give you one curveball if I might. You're operating specifically with Flight 4, but UPS obviously operates in all domains. You've got ships at sea. You've got a lot of trucks doing long haul over the highways, et cetera. And I know you're interested in unmanned systems and other domains as well. What do you think we're going to learn through the seminal work that you're doing in the airspace that might help us with unmanned systems in the other domains as well?
Well, hey, it's all connected, right? If we're operating a small, campus delivery type of operation, we are still integrating with the public airspace. So whether it's 1 mile or 50 miles, there are learnings as to how to work with the government officials, the FAA, the DOT, how to plan contingencies with local air operations. It's very common for us to work with the Medivac air services of the hospital. So there are a lot of learnings just from engaging with these different stakeholders that I'm sure will be passed along to the larger, if you want to call it, freight operations, cargo, heavy cargo. But there's also the technology, right? We are developing technology for these shorter routes that is absolutely essential to the longer routes. For example, detect and avoid technology, for air traffic that's not reporting their location. That needs to be solved. And frankly, it should be solved at the smaller scale before we expand to the big scale. So I think we are playing a pivotal role in that expansion process.
Great. Well, you just crushed the ball, even though I must have hung that curveball, but I think that's a great answer. And it's heartening for me to hear because, in the world of integration of unmanned systems, I think the airspace kind of goes first, even though in some instances the safety bar is much higher. That makes it an even better thing. But in some ways, there are fewer things to hit up there. But I do think it gives us an opportunity to build some real data around the safety, particularly when it comes to new technologies like detect and avoid and things like that, which are clearly going to scale across domains. So I appreciate that answer, and I really think it's companies like UPS that are operating in all those domains are going to help us bring this. Our motto at AUVSI, all things unmanned, into the reality of the transportation system. So, Kevin Wasik, UPS. Flight Forward. I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.